Hey guys, welcome back to Busted Seams. Today we're going to continue our work in CLO3D, which is a 3D fashion design software. I'm going to take a short underbust corset that I've already built in the system and just extend the style lines down and update some of the shaping and make sure all my lines and sewing all match up. So yeah, let's jump right in. I do have a pattern to start with here in CLO3D. So I'm going to start with my 10 panel, 4.5 inch underbust corset. So 10 panels means what it sounds like. There are 10 total panels making up the corset. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 2 across the whole, all the way around. And then I like to label things by the busk height at center front. So the busk is going to be this center front seam. It's usually reinforced with boning or an actual metal busk that has those little knobs in it that are that classic closure. I make a lot with zippers, and zippers are really easy to generate in CLO3D, so that's why this one has a zipper. But so this is 4.5 inch busk, which is pretty short actually, but you can see that it does fall under the bust. So if I show my avatar, you can see it falls under that bust line, under the bra line, and it is stylized. So I have a sort of reverse V cut out of the bottom. So it is unusual. Usually you want it to kind of go down under the belly, but this has some basically style lines just for design purposes that are a little bit different. We are going to try to start to alter this into a more standard shape. So this may take a couple of different videos, but we're going to get at least started today. So the first thing I want to do is save this as a new project. Okay, so in one of my past videos, I trued up this line here, this measurement line, to fit more with the natural waistline of the avatar, which you can see if I go to a translucent surface. You can see through, and you can see I'm really hitting that most narrow part of the waist. So I'm going to use that as kind of a baseline to extend down. That really is on a corset the most important measurement. Usually if someone is wearing a corset for compression purposes, they want to know how small that waist is going to get, and the other measurements are just going to kind of be in proportion. Okay, so we are going to start editing our 2D pattern. So I'm going to do a couple things first. I'm going to go into my 3D window, and I have binding at the top and bottom. So I'm going to go into my select binding tool, and I'm going to get rid of that because when I start screwing with the shape of these panels and extending them down, the binding's just going to do something weird. I'd rather just have to add it back later. So let's go ahead and click on that and hit delete. I'm going to leave my avatar on so I can tell really where things are hitting. If we go into my 2D window, these are laid out in order. So center front, side, side back, and center back. And then this is just a modesty panel because I have not yet tried to replicate the lace-up closure in the back. There's some things like that in CLO where it's easier to just kind of fake it. So for now, faux modesty panel, it's really just to hold the garment together when I simulate. We are going to start with our center front panel in my 2D window. And yeah, we're just going to go for it. We're going to start editing and see how far we can get. So I'm going to go to my edit pattern tool. If I select and just start dragging down and hold shift, you can see that number about halfway up that center front piece. You can see that it's going to give me a real-time measurement as I'm dragging all this down. So I'm going to drag that down to as close to exactly 8 inches on the nose as I can get it. We're going to put it right there. And then it will update in the 3D window, but I'm not going to simulate yet because that would make some really unhappy things happen. Okay. So you can see where that hits. I can still see the belly button. This hits kind of like just under the midline of what I like to call the pooch of the belly, which I think is good for this initial pattern. So you can also see my waistline did something really crazy. So we're gonna fix that. There we go. Usually these front panels, I usually don't extend them out on the bottom. You want kind of all of those seams coming together to a certain extent over the belly, essentially, to give you a little bit more structure there. So we're gonna leave that, but I do want to start to correct the shape. So I'm gonna grab this point, start to pull it up, and we're gonna go to a more traditional point, a normal V instead of an inverted V on this bottom line. So that looks pretty good for now. Okay, so we're gonna go to our next piece, but I do first want to measure. You can see how I can click on this line and then hold shift and click on the next segment, and you can see around my cursor I get a total measurement. So 7.77 is the length of this seam. So I do want to make sure that this other seam matches up to that when I extend it. You'll also notice that I have symmetrical editing on these, so it's nice. I only have to edit one side and it already, you know, automatically updates the other side. So let's grab this guy, this whole thing actually, and pull him down so that he's 7.77 or thereabouts. Holding shift. That's good enough. Okay, so now let's measure the side. Oof, pretty dang close. Start to alter this so that this side panel is going to be a little trickier. We actually want to keep some of this shaping true as opposed to just, you know, moving this straight down. So I think we're going to need another tool. This is where it starts to feel a little bit like Illustrator. We'll play with the shape here, so for now I'm going to be a little boring and just make it straight. I'll come fix that other thing. Okay, now I need to combine these. Okay, so now that I've taught myself how to merge that, you can see the 3D window's a little bit messed up and it didn't symmetrically edit. So first thing we're going to do is make this look less insane. So we're going to click in the 3D window, right click, and reset 3D arrangement. So you can see that made it look like a normal pattern piece again. And it helps when we do finally sew this back together. It'll hopefully have a little bit less collision going on if we position it a little bit closer. Okay, like I said, I messed up that bottom shape. We're just gonna leave that for now. Okay, moving on. Let's see what we want this to measure. 8.3. Okay, so what we want to do here is a similar thing where I'm going to kind of just approximate the shape with a new polygon, and then we'll combine. Again, I'll be lazy with the bottom here, and this is the side back, so it can be a little more out there. Mirror, 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 mirror. Right click, merge, and then what's our total? 8.752 versus 8.3. So we're a little long over here. Again, we'll zhuzh this a little bit as we play with that bottom shape. But we've got some work to do before we do that, so okay. We're going to call that close enough. And then let's go ahead and do the center back, and then I'll reposition this so it doesn't look so crazy. 8.43. This guy, I think I'm a little safer to just drag straight down because he's got a right angle. And then if I need to expand this out a little bit more, I will. 6.152. 8.4, so like 2.2-ish is what we're looking for. Looking at that purple number. Stop there. 8.351. And come down a little bit more. Really, really close. Okay. I do think we may need to come out a little bit more, which I'm just going to preemptively do because people got butts, you know? And especially my avatar, I put a more exaggerated waist to hip proportion on it so that it would look more like the corset was compressing the avatar, because in CLO3D, apparel can't compress the avatar like it can like a real human. So you will notice that I have a couple things to clean up. I have a couple pattern pieces where when I merged, my symmetrical pattern pieces didn't, you know, do their thing. So we're gonna delete, delete. And then, I don't know why this one's white. Why are you white? Fabric 1, fabric 2. I think maybe it's not bonded. So down here, not bonded, bonded. So I think that just happened because I merged it with an unbonded piece. So let's bond that, because corsets usually have multiple layers and they're meant to be sturdy. They're meant to suck you in. So there we go. And then we're gonna go right click, symmetrical pattern with sewing. And you see it gives us our little ghost pattern, which we're going to drop. Okay, same thing here, right click, symmetric pattern with sewing. So now we've got those pieces. Okay, and then I'm going to reset 3D arrangement because those pattern pieces I merged look very crazy. So let's reset 3D arrangement. I put it somewhere totally crazy, but we're gonna fix that. Okay, so we want it under the arm of the avatar so that when we do sew it together, it doesn't have to go through the arm and we'll have less collision issues. Then you see we have to do the same thing to the other side. It doesn't do it symmetrically. Alright, so last thing we're going to do is fix my modesty panel. So I'm going to be a little less precise with this, because it is just to temporarily hold the garment together. And now we're going to adjust our sewing. And that's probably about as far as we're going to get today, but let's go ahead and fix some of these pattern or these sewing lines so you're not like sewing it halfway down and then it's going to be really scrunched up if we simulate. So we're going to fix all that. So it should do this symmetrically, so I should only have to do it once. We're going to start at center front, and we're going to go to our select sewing tool. We do have our zipper here, so we don't actually have any sewing, and zipper looks good to me. I can see the threads. It looks like it's gonna close up correctly. The next segments, looking pretty good. And again, in this little set of preview that follows my cursor around, it'll show me if there's a delta in between the two seam lengths. This one's pretty dang close, so we're gonna leave it. Next up, you can see what it did when I merged the patterns. It didn't continue the sewing line all the way down. So I'm gonna grab him, drag him on down. So again, not much of a delta there, looking pretty good. Next, I need to drag both of these down. Again, we're not going to mess with the shaping of the bottom. I think we're just going to get the sewing right, simulate, and see what this looks like. So I can check it here. You can see nothing is crossing. It's all looking pretty good. And then this seam looks a little crazy. Yeah, let's fix him. Select, drag him down, and then again, not much of a delta. And then finally, I'm going to move these apart so we can see better. Actually, let's just delete him and we're going to start over. So we're going to free sew. So let's sew all the way down here. And then I'm going to start at the notch, and it's going to give me that automatic stopping point. So it's offset, but that's okay. This is just temporary. And then I'm going to check my sewing on the other side. I think is, we're just going to redo that, make sure it's right. Delete, free sew, there, and start at the notch. Okay, and I'm just going to double check that these others all did what they were supposed to symmetrically. Yes, yes, yes. I think we're ready. Let's save, and now let's simulate and see if I screwed up. So shortcut to simulate is to hit spacebar. Oh, look at that. Look at that. That looks amazing. That looks amazing. I've got some fit issues with these bulging areas that I can fix, but the front's looking pretty good. I need to add stability to the side seam and to some of the other seams. But honestly, looking pretty good. Let's change back to a thick textured surface. I think pretty good. Now what this isn't going to tell me is if my compression is high here and it's not high here. There is like a heat map that you can turn on that I'm not super well versed in, but you can see where it's doing a lot of work, where the tension is really high. You want high tension on a corset, that's the whole point, but I want it to be a little bit more even than this. So I actually do think I can use this as I start to adjust some of these seams and shaping and pieces to get it to look a little bit better. Strain map. Similar, you can see a lot of strain here on the side panel. So this is nice because it shows you where it's tight in the yellow versus this person cannot wear this in the red. So I'll take that into account too as I'm editing some of this. The other thing about a corset is it's not a closed garment. You have a lace-up panel in the back, and it's never really going to be completely closed, right? Because you want the waist to be nipped in more than you do that under bust line, right? Like no one cares if this is small. Everyone wants the waist to be sucked in when you're wearing a corset, if that's the point of, if that's what you want wearing a corset. So you want more stress on the waist, and you are probably going to have this part of the opening in the back when it's laced up a little bit more open, a little closer together here, and then back out almost like an X when it's completely sewn shut. So again, we'll save that modeling of the lace-up panel for a future video because I have an idea on how I can do that and maybe get it semi-accurate. But for now, I think I'm actually pretty happy.
Thank you so much for joining me for another CLO3D video. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. It really does help my channel grow. And I would love to hear from you down in the comments. If there's something else you want to see me play around with in CLO3D, I would love the suggestions and love to hear what you guys think. So until next time, bye.